My father fired me from the restaurant I built and said, "You're done here, daughter. Don't come back." Then deleted my name from everything and replaced me with my brother. 3 months later, their fraud investigation hit and I legally took back the business they stole. Hey, Reddit. My family ran a restaurant and treated me like free labor. When I finally walked away, they tried to erase me from my own business. That should have been the end, but they pushed it way too far. Before we get there, let me start from the beginning. My name is Barbara Rivas, 36 years old. I co-founded a restaurant called the Rivas Table with my family. My father, Victor, my mother, Celeste, and my younger brother, Julian. What started as a greasy diner on a back street turned into a name the city bragged about. Every critic wrote about our family legacy. But let's be honest, I was the legacy. Victor handled the bragging, Celeste handled the image, and Julian handled the credit card bills. I handled everything else. That Friday night, the place was chaos in the best way. Dinner rush, full house, the smell of seared steak, butter, and rosemary hitting the air vents. The kitchen glowed in that perfect blur of motion, servers darting, tickets printing, pans snapping on burners. I was at the expo line calling orders, steady and sharp. 2 asados, 3 fillets, fire table 12, I called. The cooks echoed back, synchronized. It was our rhythm, my rhythm. This was the world I built. Then the ticket printer jammed. No big deal. I swiped my key card to reset the system. The reader flashed red. I tried again. Red again. Then the screen froze. Access denied. A weird silence spread through the kitchen. My sous chef gave me a confused look. "You locked out, chef?" I opened the management app on my phone. Same message. My login didn't exist. Payroll blank. Inventory gone. My name wasn't even listed on the staff dashboard. It was like I'd been deleted in real time. The kitchen door swung open and there he was. Julian. New suit. Slicked hair. Fake confidence oozing off him like cheap cologne. He leaned against the door frame with that smirk I'd seen too many times growing up. "Dad says you're taking a break," he said loud enough for the whole line to hear. "Indefinite." For a second, I thought it was a prank. "That's cute," I said, still flipping through my phone. "Tell Dad I'll take a break when payroll isn't crying for help." He didn't laugh. He wasn't joking. The room got still. No metal clanks, no chatter, just the hum of the vents. I checked again. Everything was wiped. Even my email access was gone. Julian folded his arms. "You should go, sis." Dad said no drama. The word sis hit me wrong. He said it like I was a stranger. I stepped closer, close enough that his fake confidence flickered. "Tell him I'm leaving," I said, "not running." I dropped my apron on the counter, tossed my towel beside it, and walked straight out the back door. Nobody said a word. The sound of sizzling pans followed me until the door shut. Outside, the night air hit like ice. The alley smelled like grease and citrus. I leaned against the brick wall and looked up at the windows. Through the glass, I could still see my kitchen, my staff, running my system, plating my dishes. My phone buzzed. A voicemail from Victor. I pressed play. "You're done here, daughter. Don't come back. Don't make a scene." That was it. Calm, rehearsed, almost polite, like he was firing an employee he'd never met. No explanation, no thank you, just business. I stared at the phone for a long second, the hum of the city in my ears. My jaw locked tight. My hand trembled once before I caught myself. Then I laughed. Not the funny kind, just short and sharp. "They really thought I'd beg," I said under my breath. "Cute." I pulled out a cigarette, lit it, and leaned back against the wall. Smoke drifted up into the night air, mixing with the smell of charred onions from the vents. Through the kitchen window, I saw Julian stepping into my spot, trying to look like a boss. He pointed at things like he knew what they were. The cooks nodded, pretending. I almost felt bad for him. Almost. I took another drag and exhaled slow. Every recipe on that menu, every process, every connection with a supplier. It all came from me. The menus, the branding, even the stupid playlists they looped on weekends. Mine. They could scrub my name off the website, but they couldn't scrub me out of their business. I flicked the cigarette butt into the dumpster and walked toward my truck. The sign above the entrance glowed like it was mocking me. The Rivas Table. a family tradition. Yeah, some tradition. My truck looked the same as it did the first day we opened. The dents, the smell of spilled sauce, the stack of old invoices on the passenger seat. I climbed in, turned the key, and the engine grumbled to life. For a second, I just sat there watching through the windshield. The front windows of the restaurant gleamed gold. Customers laughed. Wine glasses clinked. Nobody inside knew the chef they were cheering for just got erased. I reached into the glove box and found an old photo, me and Victor standing outside the first location. I was 25, sweaty, proud, and stupid enough to believe in the word family. I stared at it, smirked, and slid it back inside. My phone buzzed again. Julian texting now. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Dad says we'll talk later. I typed back one word. Sure. Then I muted the thread and dropped his contact into Do Not Disturb. I put the truck in gear. The music came on, old school rock, loud enough to drown out the noise in my head. As I pulled away, I glanced one last time at that glowing sign. The family name looked smaller from a distance. Congratulations, Dad, I said. You just fired the only one keeping your empire from burning. The light turned green. I hit the gas and didn't look back. That was the night they thought they cut me out. They didn't know they just started a war they couldn't win. I didn't mope. I didn't drink myself stupid or start texting apologies. When you grow up around people like my family, silence is the only move that makes them sweat. It was past midnight. My apartment looked like a war zone. Half-eaten takeout, receipts scattered across the counter. I logged into the old systems I'd built back when the Revis table still felt like ours. They'd changed the passwords, but I'd built the infrastructure. I knew every backdoor, every vendor link, every API key. It took me 5 minutes to slip in through a forgotten test account. The screen filled with data, payroll sheets, inventory reports, purchase orders. At first, it looked normal. Then I saw my name. Inspection lead, Barbara Revis. Timestamp 8:17 p.m., 2 weeks ago. Problem was, I was on the expo line until close. Inspectors don't run full walkthroughs mid-rush. And I sure didn't sign this. I opened the file, a forged health inspection report with my signature. It accused me of missing safety steps. Mold in the dry storage. Temperature violations. They were laying the groundwork for a story. Chef loses it. Ruins reputation. Family forced to remove her. I scrolled deeper and found invoices, identical ones billed twice under 2 different companies. One was Rivas Table LLC, the other Rivas and Sons Catering. I didn't recognize it. I checked the tax ID, my number. They'd been running side businesses under my identity, moving money off the books for months. Every cent tied back to me if it went south. Smart play, stupid execution. I took a long breath, then started saving everything. Emails, PDFs, transaction histories. I dumped it all into an encrypted folder on a separate drive. I labeled it Fire. Halfway through, my phone buzzed. Leo Vargas, my old head chef, the only one in that building with a spine. Hey, boss, he said when I answered. You seeing what they're doing? I see plenty, I said. What's new? They're renaming your dishes. That bourbon chicken? It's Julian's signature now. Same recipe, same plate. They had new menus ready, boxes shrink-wrapped in the office. I couldn't help but laugh. Let him keep it. He'll burn it anyway. Leo chuckled, but I could hear the anger under it. They're saying you walked out on them, that you couldn't handle the pressure. Let them talk, I said. Pressure is what turns them into puddles. I hung up, saved the last batch of files, and backed up the drive twice. Then I heard it, my front door handle rattling, a short, sharp click, someone testing it. I froze, waiting. The sound stopped. I grabbed the small kitchen knife lying on the counter and walked quietly to the door. Looked through the peephole. Nothing but the dark hallway. I waited another minute before unlocking the door. The hall was empty, but when I came back inside, something was off. My external hard drive cable dangled loose from the port. That wasn't me. A quick clone of the backup, and they were pawing through it at the office. I replayed my building security footage through my phone. The camera in the lobby caught a car idling by the curb, the night manager's car from the restaurant. He stayed there for 20 minutes, then drove off. So that's how we were playing it. I didn't bother calling the cops. They'd make a report, then call Victor to verify the misunderstanding. Instead, I got to work. I created 2 decoy files on the backup drive, payroll2022.xlsx and tax audit/report.pdf. I slipped a 1x1 remote image into each so they'd ping my server when someone opened them. If they wanted to dig into my stuff, I'd let them. I'd just be watching when they did it. An hour later, the apartment was quiet again. The smell of takeout had gone stale, and the glow from the screen painted the room in cold light. I sat there watching the monitor, waiting for movement. And then it happened. A blip on the screen. One of the bait files opened from an IP address that traced straight to the restaurant's office. They took the bait. I stared at that blinking icon for a while, the edges of my mouth twitching into something between a smile and a snarl. "Nice try," I said softly. They thought they were sabotaging me. They had no idea they just handed me proof. I leaned back in the chair, eyes on the screen, letting the anger settle into focus. By Monday morning, the cracks started showing. The Rivas table was slipping fast. Payroll bounced, deliveries didn't arrive, and the suppliers I'd worked with for years started texting me screenshots of payment-failed messages. I didn't say a word. I just watched. The next day, the restaurant's Yelp page started filling with 1-star reviews. Cold food, poor service, management disaster. Half of them read like they were written by someone in a hurry. I checked the usernames. New accounts, all created within the last 48 hours. By Wednesday, my mother decided to perform damage control in her usual way by playing saint online. Pray for my daughter, Barbara. Mental health is no joke. Family first, always. I saw it while eating a sandwich at my kitchen counter. I almost choked laughing. "Mental health?" I muttered. "Lady, I'm just bored." I screenshotted her post, sent it to Leo with the caption, "She's already writing my obituary." He sent back a laughing emoji followed by, "You really broke them." An hour later, my phone buzzed again. "Unknown number." I answered. "Ms. Rivas, this is Naomi Trent from City Eats Weekly. I wanted to ask about some Yelp comments under your name. Did you really call your own restaurant a dumpster fire of nepotism?" That one caught me off guard, but only for a second. "No," I said, "but it's not a bad headline." When we hung up, I checked. Sure enough, 5 fakes, all using variations of my name. Chef BR, Barbara R99, Rivas Official. Instead of playing cop, I baited them. I replied from a burner with a one-liner and a full statement link, short URLs I controlled, different token for each reply. Within minutes, they clicked. My server logs lit up from the same static IP block, the Rivas Table corporate office. Sloppy. I leaned back in my chair, smiled, and hit upload on something I'd been saving. One of Victor's voicemails, him screaming about disrespect and how dare you defy your father. I sent it to a local food blogger who loved family scandals more than food. By morning, the clip had spread everywhere. Headline: Family feud at the Rivas table. Chef versus patriarch. Comments flooded in. Half the city picked sides. Some called me brave. Others called me a lunatic. Either way, they were talking about me, not them. The family predictably imploded. Julian tried to do damage control on Twitter. "Please respect our privacy during this challenging time. We remain committed to culinary excellence and family unity." Every reply was a meme. Celeste switched tactics, posting Bible verses about forgiveness and prodigal daughters. Victor went nuclear. Lawyers, threats, press statements full of words like defamation and trademark violation. All of it was noise. I just kept eating my sandwich and watching them crumble in real time. That afternoon, a courier showed up at my apartment. No return address, just a small brown box. Inside, printed loan papers, fake invoices, a few blank contracts, and a yellow sticky note in my mother's handwriting. "Let's not ruin the family name." Celeste. I actually laughed out loud. "You're 40 years too late for that." I flipped through the stack. The paperwork was lazy. Signatures copied from old forms. Some pages still had notes from my templates. They weren't just desperate. They were arrogant enough to think I wouldn't recognize my own work. I took photos of everything, filed it away in my fire folder, and poured another drink. Then my phone buzzed again. "Leo. They're saying you stole money, Barb. Watch your back." I grinned. They better hope I don't. He sent back a laughing emoji and a warning. Julian's trying to clean up the books, whatever that means. I knew exactly what it meant. They were scrambling, moving numbers, deleting records, pretending none of this was happening. But that kind of panic leaves fingerprints everywhere. I'd already learned to collect them. A few minutes later, I checked the Yelp page again. Someone had replied to the fake reviews. Official account, verified checkmark. The response read, "We're sorry our former partner is acting out publicly. We wish her well on her recovery." Recovery? Cute. I screenshotted it and sent it to the same blogger. By evening, the replies were brutal. They're gaslighting her live. Imagine firing your own chef and calling her crazy. PR meltdown of the year. The Rivas table had gone from fine dining to circus tent in less than a week. And me? I stayed quiet. Didn't tweet, didn't post, didn't even correct the stories. Silence is the best seasoning. You let it marinate until they can't stand it anymore. Around midnight, I opened my laptop one last time. The numbers from the delivery vendors were worse. 2 of the main suppliers had paused accounts for non-payment. Without those, half the menu was dead. Victor's culinary empire was starting to starve. I zoomed out on my tracker dashboard. The bait files I'd planted had pinged again. Someone inside their office had opened another one of the decoy files. Good. They were still dancing to my rhythm. My phone buzzed one last time that night. Unknown number again. I picked up and didn't speak. Static. Then Victor's voice, low and furious. "You think you're smart? You think you can humiliate this family?" I didn't hang up. I just let him talk until he ran out of breath. Then said, "No, Dad, I don't think I can. I know I did." I hung up before he could answer. They declared war on me with lies, posts, and pity. I responded with proof. And the best part? The night wasn't even over yet. The box my mother sent wasn't peace. It was panic. Everything inside it screamed desperation. I laid the papers out across my kitchen table and started reading line by line. Then I found something that made my stomach tighten. A government relief loan taken out under the Rivas table, co-signed by me. The digital signature was identical to mine, but the address listed wasn't our main restaurant. It was somewhere in East Harbor, an industrial lot with a sign that read, "Rivas and Sons Catering, a ghost kitchen." I looked it up. Grainy Google Street View, loading dock, metal door. No dining room, no brand, just a shell. I clicked through the registry database, cross-referencing the tax numbers. Every path looped back to my social security number. They'd built an entire side operation on my name, stealing federal money and leaving me as the face if it ever blew up. I didn't hesitate. I wrote an email to Victor. No fluff, no greetings. 24 hours to fix your paperwork before I go public. I hit send. 3 minutes later, the reply came in. "You think you can threaten me? You'd be nothing without me." I smirked and typed back. Then it's time to test that theory. I shut the laptop, grabbed my keys, and drove downtown. Owen Hale, the family accountant, had been with us for years. He was the kind of guy who ironed his ties and flinched when phones rang too loud. I found him in his office, sleeves rolled up, eyes red like he hadn't slept in days. "Barbara," he said, half whisper, half exhale, "you shouldn't be here." "Relax," I said, sitting across from him. "You're not on trial. Yet." He rubbed his temples. "They've been using your name for everything. Contracts, permits, even the franchise filings. You're tied to things you don't know about." "I figured as much," I said. "That's why I'm here." He swallowed. "You need to protect yourself." "I am," I told him. "You just don't know it yet." He blinked like he didn't understand, then looked down, ashamed. I stood, buttoned my jacket, and left him to whatever guilt he'd just discovered. Halfway to my truck, my phone buzzed. "Julian, you're going to regret this. Dad's serious this time." I typed back without stopping. "Tell him I'm not the one who should be scared." By the time I got home, I could feel the tension crawling under my skin. Not fear, pressure, like the heat before a storm. I poured a drink, opened in my laptop, and began building my next move. I backed up everything to encrypted servers and off-site cloud storage. If they wanted to erase me, I'd make sure the world saw what they did first. Then the phone rang again. My lawyer, Grant Davis. "Barbara," he said, his voice sounded heavy. "I can't represent you anymore." I paused. "Excuse me?" "This is getting messy. Your father's got connections, and this could hit my firm. It's just too risky." "So you're backing out?" "I'm sorry," he said. "I have to." He hung up before I could answer. I stared at the phone for a few seconds, then set it down. The anger hit fast, clean, and controlled. I slammed my palm on the desk once, hard enough to rattle the glass. Fine, I said to the empty room. I'll represent myself. I'm cheaper. I opened a new document and started writing everything out. Dates, account names, transaction IDs, fake addresses, tax links. I wasn't building a case anymore. I was building a weapon. I checked the Ghost Kitchen's listings one more time. They'd uploaded new photos that morning. Cheap lighting, fake customer reviews, Julian's handwriting on the menu captions. Bold enough to advertise using my recipes under my name while pretending I didn't exist. I took screenshots of everything, labeled the folder fraud, and added it to the backup drive. When I leaned back in my chair, I caught my reflection in the dark window. I didn't look angry anymore. I looked focused. The same look I had when I built the Revis table from the ground up. They'd forgotten that side of me. The side that doesn't bluff. My phone buzzed again. Another email from Victor. Short this time. You don't understand what you're doing. I didn't reply. I just smiled and said to myself, I understand exactly what I'm doing. I spent the rest of the night filing and tagging every piece of evidence. By dawn, I had a clean paper trail leading straight to them. The kind of trail no lawyer, no PR spin, no fake tears could erase. I'd been combing through tax folders for hours, sorting the pieces of their mess into something I could use. Most of it was the same. Fake invoices, duplicate filings, sloppy math. But buried halfway there through one folder, I found something new. Policyholder, the Rivas table, LLC. Insured, Barbara Rivas. Policy type, key person life insurance. Payout, $750,000 upon unexpected death. Beneficiary, Victor Rivas. My signature sat on the bottom, neat and familiar. Only problem, it wasn't mine. I checked the creation date. Updated 2 weeks ago. The email listed as my contact wasn't mine either. Some jumbled Gmail address. For a second, I just stared at it. A policy that paid my father $750,000 if something happened to me. That wasn't fraud anymore. That was motive. I called the insurance company, pretending to be my own assistant. Years in restaurants teach you how to sound professional under pressure. Hi, this is Dana speaking on behalf of Ms. Rivas. We need to verify some account details. The rep didn't hesitate. Of course. Are you referring to the business life insurance policy updated on the 8th? Exactly that one, I said. She rattled off the basics. Victor listed as the policy owner, my fake email on file, the updated beneficiary agreement processed recently. A no-exam simplified issue add-on slid through with a forged e-sign and a spoofed email. On their screen, it passed. On mine, it screamed forgery. Thanks, I said, keeping my voice steady. That's all we needed. Guess I was worth more dead than dinner. The thought didn't last long. I opened a new folder and dragged the policy into it, right to the top. Then I started writing the next list. Who to notify, what to file, how to time the hit so every door slammed at once. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was correction. That night, I sat at my desk replaying the facts. They hadn't just stolen from me. They had built a legal paper trail that made me worth money if I stopped breathing. That was the kind of scheme you don't fix with a press release. I started organizing everything for the next step, the counterattack. The fraud reports were almost ready. I'd planned to send them to the feds by the weekend. Now I added the insurance file to the top of the pile. Around 10, someone knocked on my door. 3 short raps. I wasn't expecting anyone. I grabbed the small folding knife off the counter and looked through the peephole. Julian. He looked different. Sweaty, pale, twitchy, like someone who'd been arguing for hours and losing. I opened the door halfway. What do you want? I asked. He shifted his weight. Dad's losing it, Barb. He hasn't slept in days. Mom's crying every night. You don't need to ruin this. We can fix it. I leaned on the door frame. You came here to threaten me or apologize? His jaw tightened. You're going to destroy the family. I smiled small and sharp. You already did. I'm just putting up the sign. Julian's face twisted. He tried to say something else, but stopped himself. He looked at me like he didn't recognize who I'd become. The truth was, I just stopped pretending. He stepped back. You think this makes you the good guy? No, I said. It just makes me the one still standing. He turned and stormed down the hall. The echo of his footsteps faded fast. I closed the door, locked it, and muttered to myself, you can't fix rotten meat. For a while, I just stood there, staring at the documents on my desk. The insurance policy sat on top, my fake signature taunting me. I took a deep breath and went back to work. Every file, every forged form, every email I'd saved became a weapon in the right order. I set up my cloud backups, encrypted the storage drive, mirrored it off-site, and created a packet labeled Fraud Plus Insurance. Every step methodical, calm, deliberate. I'd built a business once. Now I was building its autopsy. By midnight, my apartment was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak from the hallway. I got up to pour a drink, but something outside caught my eye. Through the blinds, I saw headlights. A car parked across the street, engine running. At first, I figured it was a neighbor, but 20 minutes passed. Then 40. The car didn't move. I turned off the lights and watched from the shadows. I couldn't see the driver, just the faint glow of a phone inside. Was it surveillance? Paranoia? Guilt? I couldn't tell. But after everything I'd found, I wasn't ruling anything out. Eventually, I grabbed my phone and took a photo through the blinds. The flash didn't go off, but a second later, the car's headlights blinked on. Then it pulled away slowly, disappearing around the corner. I waited another 5 minutes before turning the lights back on. My pulse stayed steady. They wanted me scared. I wasn't giving them that satisfaction. I went back to my desk, opened a new note file, and typed 3 lines. Policy found. Forged. Beneficiary. Victor. Julian came to warn me. A car idled outside. No front plate visible. I saved it to my encrypted folder, time-stamped it, and shut the laptop. It was past 2 a.m. The city outside was dead quiet, but my mind was running a mile a minute. I leaned back in my chair, eyes on the ceiling. They'd made one mistake too many. You can hide theft, you can fake signatures, but you can't fake intent. Not when the paperwork literally says, if she dies unexpectedly. When I finally moved, it wasn't out of anger, it was timing. Every move up to that point had been defense. This was offense. I spent the morning at my desk, coffee in one hand, files in the other. Every piece of evidence, every forged signature, fake invoice, inspection report, and falsified loan went into one airtight submission packet. I filed them with the IRS, Small Business Administration, and the State Fraud Division. 3 agencies, 3 copies. The confirmation emails came in within minutes. No turning back now. 48 hours later, the choke point hit where it always does, the money pipes. The lender flagged the relief loan anomalies. The bank put a hold on the operating account. The card processor flipped the risk switch after a spike in chargebacks. Vendors saw the holds and moved them to cash in advance. The agencies sent case numbers. The financials did the strangling. By the 3rd day, my phone turned into a symphony of panic. Celeste was first, voice soft, shaking, rehearsed. Barbara, please, sweetheart. We can fix this. Just talk to us. You're hurting everyone. Then Victor, voice sharp enough to cut glass. You ungrateful little brat. You're destroying what I built. Then Julian, the family's PR puppet. You'll regret this, Barb. I'll sue you myself if I have to. I didn't answer any of them. I just sat by the window sipping coffee while the sun came up, watching the street below. Freedom didn't make a sound, but it had a taste. Quiet and clean. By that afternoon, Victor texted me himself. Dinner tonight. Woman to woman. I agreed. Not for peace, for closure. The restaurant he chose wasn't ours, but it tried to be. A copy of the Rivas table, right down to the menu layout. When I walked in, he was already sitting there, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, eyes red. He didn't wait for pleasantries. You've embarrassed this family, he started. Everything we built, everything I sacrificed, you threw it away for ego. I let him talk. He loved hearing himself more than he loved the business. He ranted about loyalty, blood, duty, how I'd been poisoned by resentment. I let every word wash over me while I stirred my drink. When he finally paused for breath, I said, calm and steady, you spent your life teaching me control, Dad. You just forgot I learned it better than you. I stood, dropped a 50 on the table for my drink, and started walking out. You'll regret this, he shouted behind me. I didn't even turn around. Already don't. I didn't realize until then that the weight I'd been carrying was mostly their noise. The next morning, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. It was Owen Hale, the accountant. His voice was quiet, shaky. I can't do this anymore, he said. A few minutes later, an email arrived. The subject line read, For your protection. Attached was a file transfer link. Inside the folder, a single document labeled Rivas Ledgers, 2013-2023. 10 years of hidden ledgers, side accounts, unreported income, every secret they'd buried, all neatly organized. Game over. I spent the day reviewing it. Every number matched the evidence I'd already sent out. It was the missing piece, their smoking gun wrapped in their accountant's guilt. That night, I pulled up the original LLC paperwork. Buried in the original contract was my clause, the one they never bothered to amend. It stated that any partner found guilty of financial misconduct forfeited ownership rights to the company's assets, including intellectual property, recipes, branding, name, all mine. By Friday, I filed for emergency relief under the old operating agreement. By Monday morning, a judge signed a temporary order handing me control of the name, accounts, and records pending the misconduct hearing. Not a final victory, but an order with teeth. The irony didn't miss me. I didn't even want the restaurant anymore. I just wanted them to lose it. When the news broke, it spread fast. Local channels ran the story. Family-owned empire frozen amid federal fraud probe. Reporters camped outside the restaurant. Cameras flashed. Victor finally spoke publicly, standing in front of the shuttered doors with a microphone shoved in his face. His tie was crooked. His voice cracked from rage. "This is lies. My daughter has betrayed this family. She's manipulated the system to steal what's ours." The anchor looked half amused, half uncomfortable. The clip made every social feed within hours. I caught it on TV later that night while pouring a drink. There he was, my father, sweating under the lights, waving his hands, shouting into a camera about betrayal. I smiled, raised my glass, and muttered, "Nice to see him finally cooking something." His own reputation. For the first time in years, the apartment felt quiet in a good way. No calls, no threats, no guilt. I leaned back, thinking about the first day I ever cooked for him, back when the restaurant was just an idea, before the money, before the lies. I remembered the way he'd smiled back then, proud, human. That version of him had died long before I hit send on those files. Now all that was left was fallout. I turned off the TV, opened my laptop, and checked my email one more time. The federal investigators had already responded. "Thank you for your cooperation." That was it. No drama, no final showdown, just results. I sat there watching the message fade into my inbox list and realized something. I hadn't just won. I'd ended it. The Rivas table was mine again. But it wasn't home anymore. It was evidence. Proof that control and ego will always eat each other alive. And for once, I wasn't on the menu. The headline hit the front page before sunrise. Family restaurant empire collapses amid federal investigation. I didn't celebrate. I just read it once, folded the paper, and dropped it in the trash. The photo underneath said, "Enough." Victor standing outside the Rivas table, hands up, face twisted mid-sentence while cameras flashed around him. The caption called him the fallen father of fine dining. A few hours later, my phone buzzed, one new voicemail. I already knew who it was. I hit play. "You were never one of us," Victor said, his voice tired and broken. I deleted it before he finished the sentence. It had been months since the collapse. The investigations were still ongoing. But by then, the Rivas name was a cautionary tale. Victor and Celeste disappeared from public view. Julian tried to reinvent himself online, posting motivational quotes between meltdown tweets. I didn't care. I'd moved on. Through a holding company, I bought one of the old restaurant spaces. The smaller one, the first expansion we'd ever opened. The building had been empty for 6 months, dust thick enough to track footprints in. The sign still said Rivas Table in faded gold lettering. I took it down myself. The new name went up 2 weeks later, Ledger. No family branding, no legacy slogans, just a word that meant balance. I called Leo first. He didn't even hesitate. "Tell me when to show up," he said. We opened quietly. No press release, no hype, just a clean space, an open kitchen, and food that spoke for itself. Leo ran the line. I handled the floor. We worked like we used to, before all the nonsense. No shouting, no ego, just precision. The place caught on fast. Customers liked that it felt honest. No fancy PR stories, no family melodrama, just food that tasted like someone cared. The reviews were simple and real. One said, "It feels peaceful in there." That one stuck with me. A few months in, a journalist stopped by. Mid-30s, sharp, curious. She ordered the bourbon chicken, my old recipe, and asked for an interview after the meal. I agreed. She flipped open her notepad. "Why name it Ledger?" I smiled, because sooner or later, everyone settles their balance. She wrote it down, nodded like she understood, and left me her card. The next day, an article ran online. From family fire to fine dining, Chef Barbara Rivas balances the books. Business doubled. We ran out of seats most nights. The staff actually enjoyed coming to work. No screaming from upstairs. No last-minute panic over missing invoices, just rhythm. On opening night of our third month, Leo handed me the reservation list before service started. There was one table marked unclaimed, Rivas. He looked at me carefully. You want me to cancel it? I shook my head. No, leave it. When the night rush hit, the table stayed empty. Servers walked around it like it didn't exist. I didn't move it or fill it. It wasn't for customers. It was a reminder. After the last guest left and the lights dimmed, Leo finished wiping down the counters. The kitchen glowed clean, stainless steel catching the low light. I stood near the pass, hands in my pockets, taking it all in. The sound of the hood fans, the faint smell of garlic and smoke, the steady quiet of a place finally at peace. Leo looked over. You good, boss? I nodded. Better than ever. He smiled, hung his apron, and headed out the back door. I locked up, walked to the front, and looked out through the glass. The city lights reflected off the new sign. Ledger, sharp white against black. The Rivas name was gone from the street, just how it should be. I turned back toward the kitchen, the empty table still sitting there untouched. A folded napkin rested in the center where a plate should have been. I almost laughed. They tried to cut me off, I said quietly. I just cut them out. I shut off the lights, the click echoing through the empty dining room. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel like loss. It felt like ownership. When I stepped outside, the air was cool, calm, clean, the kind of night that didn't need to be earned. I locked the door behind me, slipped the key into my pocket, and walked away from the Rivas table for good. Ledger was mine, my work, my name, my peace, and that was enough.